Can you hear the sound of the baby crying? Don't help it. Run for your life. That is bush baby. And if you try to help it, you will be eaten. Bush baby is a monster, but it was once a baby. The baby of a budding schoolgirl. This is the origin of bush baby. Whenever news broke that a girl had been used for money ritual, it was always a girl from Federal Girls College. Whenever politicians needed girls, it was always girls from Federal Girls College. Those boarding school girls were notorious. Well, not all the girls in Federal Girls College were bad girls. Alice was different. Alice was a good girl. She never joined other girls to jump the school fence. While others sneaked out at night, Alice stayed behind, reading her books. This alone made many girls angry. They felt she was too proud and acting too righteous, like Ovasabi. Well, Alice was the pride of the school. She was an orphan who was in the school on scholarship. After both her parents died due to an unknown illness, the principal of Federal Girls College, Mrs. Oke, took Alice in. She was extremely intelligent and the teachers loved her deeply. Whenever the school went for a quiz competition, Alice always represented Federal Girls College and she never failed them. But Alice was not completely a good girl. She had a secret. Alice had a boyfriend, the school principal's son. His name was Emmanuel. Alice was 18 years old, while Emmanuel was 20. Emmanuel was the son of the principal. He liked Alice from the day she came to their house. As school resumed and Alice left the house to the dormitory, Emmanuel seized every opportunity to see her. Emmanuel was done with secondary school and was waiting to get into the university. While waiting for his admission into the university, Emmanuel often came to Federal Girls College with his mother, the principal. Alice and Emmanuel were in love, but they kept their relationship a secret. The problem was that Alice and Emmanuel were always meeting in corners, hidden places within the school compound. While other girls needed to jump fence to meet boys, Alice did not need to. She only needed to hide in a quiet corner to see Emmanuel. So while everybody praised Alice for being a good girl, she was not entirely that good. One day, emotions were high and they did what they should not have done. They both agreed to keep it a secret. Emmanuel believed he truly loved Alice. 2 weeks after that special moment between Alice and Emmanuel, Emmanuel got admission into the university. The next day, he came to the school and arranged to meet Alice in the laundry room during prep. While they met, Emmanuel told her the good news, but it was not such a good news to Alice. She broke down and cried when she heard he was leaving. Emmanuel tried to calm her down. He told her he would always come to see her during his break and that nothing would change between them and that he loved her so much. That night, emotions took over again and they did the wrong thing once again. Soon after, Emmanuel left for the university. Alice continued her normal school life. 2 weeks after Emmanuel left, Alice began to notice strange changes in her body. She started waking up unusually late. She was always hungry and began vomiting frequently. At first, she did not think much of it until one day, Matron Agnes noticed Alice vomiting and called her aside. She asked Alice to turn around and looked at her properly. After observing her closely, the matron took Alice straight to the school clinic. After the school nurse ran some tests, the truth came out. Alice was pregnant. The matron looked at her in shock and asked, "Alice, tell me the truth. Who is responsible?" Alice kept quiet. The matron asked again, "Alice, do you want to ruin your life? Who is responsible?" Alice still refused to talk. The matron reminded Alice that she was an orphan and the only reason the principal took her in was because she was intelligent and the fact that she's pregnant now can ruin her life. Alice still refused to answer. Left with no choice, the matron took Alice to the school principal. Immediately the principal heard that Alice was pregnant. She dropped everything she was doing. She exclaimed, if it was Mabel, I would not be surprised. If it was Goodness, I won't be surprised. But you?" The matron sat quietly as the principal questioned Alice, but Alice still refused to tell them who got her pregnant. Finally, the principal threatened to throw Alice out of the school and withdraw her scholarship. That was when Alice spoke. She said softly, "Ima." The school principal frowned. "Which Ima?" Alice replied, "Your son, Ima." The principal was shocked. She never knew Emmanuel and Alice were involved. That was when it dawned on her that the reason Emmanuel liked following her to school was because of Alice. After a long silence, the principal spoke. "Alice, you want to frame my son. I took you in after your parents passed, and this is how you pay me? You want to ruin my family's reputation? It won't happen. I will deal with this," the principal told Alice angrily. Then the principal turned to the matron and the school nurse, and she told them this pregnancy must be kept a secret. The matron was the principal's puppet, so she agreed immediately. The nurse, on the other hand, was threatened. The principal warned the nurse that if she dares reveal the secret, then the school board and everyone will know that the nurse once made a mistake and gave a student wrong medication that caused the student to pass away. Alice was quickly removed from the dormitory and taken to live in a small room far away from students' quarters. It was a lonely room kept for the principal, a place she used anytime she wanted to sleep around the school. But the principal never really used that room. It was abandoned and dirty. But that was where Alice was kept. Alice was separated from other girls, but she was still allowed to come to school. Despite all the efforts to keep the matter secret, news soon began to spread around the boarding school. One day, Mabel whispered to Goodness, "I heard Alice is pregnant." Goodness frowned. "That's not possible. Alice is a good girl now." Mabel scoffed. "So you think pretenders don't exist? Good girl, care. That girl is a pretender." Goodness became curious. "We need to confirm this," she said. So one afternoon after school, Mabel and Goodness secretly followed Alice. They watched her walk towards the bush close to the school. They were surprised. Where is she going?" they whispered to each other as they followed her quietly. Soon, they saw Alice walk into a small ugly house hidden deep inside the bush. Just as Alice was about to enter, they stopped her. "Alice, where are you going?" Alice turned around. The moment she saw them, she burst into tears. They were shocked. "Why are you crying? What happened?" they asked. Alice led them into the ugly house and told them everything. She told them how she got pregnant for the principal's son. She told them how the principal said her son could never be responsible. She told them how the principal and the matron forced her to stay in this lonely house in the bush. She also told them that once the pregnancy reached 4 months, she would no longer be allowed to attend school. And finally, she told them that the principal had plans to sell the baby once she gave birth. As Alice spoke, they started crying with her. As the 3 girls were talking and crying, the principal suddenly entered the room and shouted at them. "What are you doing here?" she asked. She warned Mabel and Goodness sternly. "If anybody hears about this matter, the entire school will hear about your abortion." Mabel and Goodness froze. They were shocked. How did she know they once had an abortion? They asked themselves. The principal laughed. "You are surprised, I know. I am the school's principal. I know everything," she said. Fear gripped Mabel and Goodness. They immediately agreed to keep quiet. The principal took them back to the school, while Alice stayed in the abandoned room, still crying as usual. 5 months into the pregnancy, there was a strike at the university and Emmanuel came back home. He was happy to be back and eager to see Alice. But when he came to the school, he did not find her. Not at home, not in school. Alice was nowhere to be found. Confused, Emmanuel asked his mother, "Mommy, where is Alice?" His mother snapped at him. "I have been waiting for you to ask," she shouted. "So you have been sleeping with that girl?" Emmanuel was shocked that his mother knew. He and Alice agreed to keep it a secret. The principal, however, continued coldly. She told him that Alice had discovered she was pregnant and went for an abortion, and that was how she died. It was a lie, but Emmanuel believed. He was devastated. He truly loved Alice. He mourned her death for years. Meanwhile, Alice was alive, pregnant and abandoned, living in the bush with Emmanuel's child. The principal had no pity for her grandchild. While Alice was living in the bush, she made an unusual friend, a popular witch. Everyone knew Madam Cecilia was a witch. She often came into the bush to make sacrifices or to catch small animals for her rituals. When she noticed Alice was living in the bush, she was surprised. She always wondered what a schoolgirl was doing in the bush, but she tried to mind her business. She said to herself, "I do my ritual, another person can do theirs." But little by little, she started speaking to Alice, and from time to time, she would check up on Alice, but never asked Alice any question about what she was doing in the bush. Madam Cecilia liked to mind her business, but she always brought food and fruits for Alice. One day she came and Alice was crying. She held Alice and asked what the problem was. Alice told Cecilia everything that happened to her. After listening, Cecilia blamed Alice. She told her that instead of focusing on her studies, she chose to sleep with a man. Then Cecilia asked her, "Do you want me to curse them for you?" She said it will only take one small sacrifice and they would all be gone. Alice smiled sadly and replied, "No ma, I really love Emmanuel and I know he loves me too." On the other hand, the university strike ended and Emmanuel returned back to school. By then, Alice was already 9 months pregnant, lonely and suffering in the bush. The D-Day finally came. It was time for the baby to be born. Alice went into labor alone. She screamed and screamed, but nobody came. Alice suffered alone in pain. She managed to crawl outside, hoping that someone would see her. When the principal eventually arrived, both Alice and the baby appeared lifeless. The principal smiled. She said coldly, "Good, it is better you leave this earth. My son already believes you are dead, so it's better you actually die." Then she said to herself, "I would have made money from selling this baby, but it is still okay. You both should leave this world so I can rest," the principal added. The principal was cold and wicked. Unknown to her, Madam Cecilia had come that same time to check up on Alice, and she hid behind a tree to make sure the principal did not see her. She heard everything the principal said. She was shocked that the principal was this wicked. Madam Cecilia said to herself, "I am a witch, but I am not wicked like this." While Madam Cecilia was hiding, the principal left Alice and the baby and just walked away. As the principal walked away, Madam Cecilia came out of her hiding place. She rushed to Alice and discovered that Alice was not dead. She was only extremely weak and needed help. The baby was also not dead, just very weak. Cecilia tried to take both of them away, but suddenly she heard footsteps and recognized the voice of the principal approaching. Quickly, Madam Cecilia grabbed the baby and hid. When the principal returned with the matron and some boys, she searched around. She did not see the baby. She was shocked. She told the matron that the baby was no longer there. The matron was worried and uncomfortable, but she did not speak up. The principal did not care though, as long as nobody could link the baby to her. Then she did not care. In her mind, it was not today that girls from Federal Girls College were known to be rebellious, so Alice was no different. She instructed them to bury Alice. The matron was shocked, but as usual, she kept quiet. The boys buried Alice right there in the bush, but Alice was not dead, so technically, Alice was buried alive. Madam Cecilia watched everything. After they left, Madam Cecilia took the baby home and tried to take care of her, but the baby did not get better. Every day, the baby grew weaker and weaker. One morning, Madam Cecilia woke up and discovered that the baby was gone. She was deeply pained. In anger and grief, Madam Cecilia took her charms and went to Alice's grave. She performed a ritual. She called on the spirit of Alice and reminded Alice that she had been buried alive. She called on her spirit to take over the body of the baby and return to the world to avenge her death. Suddenly, a strong breeze blew. Rain began to fall. Thunder struck loudly, and immediately the baby began to cry. That was how Bush Baby was born. The condition for the ritual was clear. The baby would become half spirit and half human. Immediately the ritual was completed, the baby grew a few inches taller and began to walk almost immediately. If you saw the creature, you would think it was an adult with stunted growth. Its fingernails were extremely long. Its hair was thick, full and bushy, almost covering its eyes. Madam Cecilia turned the baby into a monster. The only person the creature knew and understood was her. Madam Cecilia then sent Bush Baby back to the school to avenge herself and her mother. Bush Baby mostly live in the bush, and sometimes while passing near the bush, you would hear it call your name and cry for help. Never answer, never help it. Bush Baby began tormenting the principal. At night, the principal would hear the sound of a baby crying, "Help me, help me!" But it would never see anybody. The matron was not exempted. She also started hearing the cry of a baby. One night, while doing dormitory check, the matron heard a baby crying. The girls in the dormitory heard it too, but the matron heard it louder. She heard the baby calling her name. The matron started acting strangely, and the girls were shocked. She started screaming, "A baby is calling my name! Help me! Help me!" The matron was running mad. The girls called for help, and the matron was taken away. The girls were surprised. They were also hearing the sound of the baby, but not as serious as the matron made it look. From that day, girls in boarding school began calling the mysterious cry Bush Baby. But Bush Baby was not done yet. The principal was still free. Sometimes, while moving around the school, especially at night, the principal would hear a baby crying. Sometimes she would even see the figure of the baby, but nobody around her was seeing the baby. She knew something was wrong, but she did not understand it yet. She knew she should have searched for the baby that day. She was afraid for her life after knowing what happened to the matron. One evening around 6 p.m, as the principal was about to leave the school, she saw it again. The Bush Baby. She screamed and asked the schoolgirls around her, "Can you see it?" They replied, "No." She shouted again, "Can you hear the crying?" The girls answered, "Yes, we can hear a baby crying, but we did not see anything." The principal started shouting, "I will confess, I will confess," in the presence of the security, some students and some teachers. She told them everything that happened to Alice. She told them how Alice got pregnant for her son, how she locked Alice in the abandoned room inside the bush, how Alice died. The principal was acting erratic, then she started running. That was how she ran into a moving vehicle. Bush Baby had successfully avenged her mother, but Bush Baby was still a roaming monster, half spirit, half human. Be careful the evil you do, cause you can create a harm that will torment people long after you are gone. Alice had avenged her death, but now Alice was fused in her baby and was now a monster. The once intelligent girl was now a monster inside her baby. Bush Baby continued to live in the bush, tormenting schoolgirls at night and harming evil adults. 5 years passed. Madam Cecilia the witch was now very old and about to leave the world. When she remembered Bush Baby, she felt pity on the monster and decided to bless it. She went to the bush and summoned Bush Baby and gave it a mat. She said, "This mat will be your gift to the world. Anybody that can take this mat and withstand crying will become rich. You are now a monster and will torment the world forever. But I also want you to be a blessing to the world." But no, this was not a gift or a blessing, because anybody who takes the mat and cannot withstand the crying of Bush Baby for 7 days straight will run mad or die. So the big question is, who will be greedy enough to take Bush Baby's mat?